It is I, Yakov, and I am back with more AGHORA at the Left Hand of God by Robert Svoboda. I feel like I'm coming down with a little bit of a cold, so I should sound fucking good in mush mouth for this reading. I was encouraged to do this today. I wasn't going to because I'm in a terrible mood and life is hard. But here I am because somebody actually gave a fuck. I'm here to read Chapter 3, Shiva. The world considers you inauspicious, O destroyer of lust, who plays in the Smashan smeared with the ash from funeral pyres, wearing a necklace of human skulls with ghouls for comrades. But for those who remember you with devotion, O bestower of boons, you are supremely auspicious. Shiva Mahimna Stotra 24. Still can't say any of these goddamn, I don't know, Sanskrit words, I guess. I don't know. Pretty ignorant on that, but I'll do my best. Mahakala. One day I said to Smashantara, "You are my my mother, but who is my father? I know the mother always shows the face of the father, the face of its father." I'm going to try that again. I know the mother always shows the child the face of its father, so won't you show me mine? We have a saying in Hindi. Only your conscience knows all your sins, and only a child's mother knows its true father. Without Smashantara, I could never have succeeded at the sadhana for her great consort, Lord Shiva. Tantrikas and Aghoris work this way. First, they achieve success at sadhana for Shakti, and then they use that Shakti to move on to the universal soul, Shiva. I spent 3 years at the Worli Smashan in Bombay performing rituals before my Tara would finally agree to show me the sadhana for Mahakala, the destroyer of the cosmos. That sadhana was impossible to perform in Bombay. First, I went to Nimtola Ghat in Calcutta, and then I spent 10 months on Manikarnika Ghat in Benares. Manikarnika Ghat is called Mahasmashan, the greatest Smashan. Not even 1 second passes there in idleness. There is at least one body burning at all times, around the clock. This has been going on for untold thousands of years. The fire which is used to ignite the pyres has been maintained continuously for centuries. It is never allowed to go out. People come for thousands of miles to Benares just so they can die there and be burned in Manikarnika Ghat. Every day, dozens of bodies arrive by train, the bodies of those who died outside Benares but yearn to be cremated there. There are too many bodies for them to burn down all the way to ash. So as soon as the skull pops open and most of the flesh is incinerated, the priests recite the appropriate verses and push the corpse into the Ganges River to make way for another one. As soon as the body hits the river, packs of dogs fight each other for the remaining morsels, and then the turtles and fish devour whatever is left. If you were to stay there 10 months at a stretch like I did, and still not realize that you were going to die, well, then there is no hope for you. You'll never realize it. You'll die in ignorance. I used to sit there all day and all night. I would cook my rice in a fresh skull each day, without even cleaning out the bits of brain. The Smashan is the ideal place for the worship of Lord Shiva, because death is eternal reality and Lord Shiva is the destroyer, the very embodiment of death. You will always find him among the dead, amidst the spirits, corpses, and the ashes of burnt bodies. Manikarnika Ghat is Shiva's favorite haunt. While I was doing sadhana of Mahakala there, eventually came a time when I began to hear someone laughing in my ear and telling me, "You fool! Do you realize what you are doing? If I come and stand in front of you, you will have to die. There is no escape. No one can see me and live, because no one can see me except at the moment of death." I laughed and said, "I don't care. I have to die someday, so why not now? I'm ready to die, but I want to see you." This went on for several days. Then the voice said, "Listen, I'm serious. If you keep this up, it will mean your end." Again I explained, "I am ready to die. Life means nothing to me. I'm waiting for you." Finally, Mahakala became pleased with my sadhana and told me, I know you want me to come and stand before you, but you will not be able to endure seeing me and still continue to live. I will come and stand behind you, and I will always remain with you at your back. Since that day, I have never been afraid of death. How can I be, with the destroyer himself to back me up? I now know what death is, and when it comes to me I will embrace it, because it is my own beloved deity, Mahakala. I started out talking about Shiva, and then began to call him Mahakala. Shiva and Mahakala are two aspects of the same being. Call him Atman, Purusha, universal soul, ultimate reality, God the Father, or what you will. Shiva is the one, the absolute, the one without a second, the embodiment of pure consciousness. All duality exists in the manifested universe, and Shiva is beyond all that. Or rather, almost beyond all that. Shiva has form, which means that his personality exists within nature, created from Adya. Lord Shiva is not absolutely absolute, because out of compassion he has taken on an attribute or two to enable us to comprehend him. These attributes, though, do give him certain limitations, very subtle ones of course, so subtle that from our point of view they are no limitations at all, but they are sufficient to distinguish him from Mahakala. Mahakala has no limitation of any kind whatsoever, at least in the universe we know. He has no form at all, none. At least Shiva manifests a form we can concentrate on. Mahakala is utterly formless, which means he can assume all forms at will. Mahakala is the god of time. He is Satya Sri Akala. True, auspicious, beyond time. He is time. How can he be subject to it? Since time exists only for mortals, Mahakala must be immortal, which makes him true because he is absolute, free of any taint of Maya. This makes him auspicious, in the true sense of the word. Mahakala is the only being of all possible beings in the universe who never falls prey to Maya. Even Lord Shiva, the same essence as Mahakala in a different manifestation with a different job to do, fell once or twice. But Mahakala never even looks at Maya. No one can persuade him to. When he comes for you, no matter how hard you beg for 5 minutes just to put your affairs in order, no, is the only answer you will get. When even Lord Krishna himself could not induce death to wait even for a moment, how will you be able to do it? Why is this? Because Mahakala is the pivot on which the entire universe turns. On the one hand, there is Saguna Brahman, the samsara, which is the infinity of forms, endless. On the other, the Nirguna Brahman, which is formless infinity, absolutely no form, zero as far as form is concerned. Between these two, connecting them together, is Mahakala. He is the fulcrum, the tangent between infinity and zero. Death and the Smashan. If you know about birth, you know about death, and vice versa. The best place to learn about death is the Smashan. The Smashan is the true temple, the place of eternal reality. When you go into an ordinary temple, you go to ask for some benefit. And if you see a pretty girl or a handsome man there in the temple, you will forget about the deity and start thinking about how to get a hold of that attractive but very impermanent human body. In the Smashan, though, all you know is sadness and tears. If a man sees a woman, he has to think, yes, she will die and be burned or buried like everyone else. When you go to live in the Smashan, you first lose repugnance as you get used to living among corpses and bones and all sorts of other filthy things. After repugnance goes, fear goes. Because when you know what a thing is, you are no longer afraid of it. You learn about death, and it can scare you no longer. After fear goes, shame goes. Because you are no longer afraid to walk about nude or to do what must be done. You care for nothing then. Little by little, all the 8 snares disappear. Most people go to the Smashan only for a day. For the next week or so, they will have no taste for the things of the world, but gradually that taste will return. This is what we call Smashan renunciation. It is false, fleeting, easy to forget. Mahakala causes them to forget. If you stay in the Smashan long enough, Mahakala will cause you to forget the world permanently. You will forget your family, your friends, everything and everyone. All you'll be able to remember is that you are going to die. This is true renunciation, which Lord Shiva alone can give you. No one else. One day, when I was sitting at the Banganga Smashan in Bombay, I saw the state funeral for the governor of Bombay, Girija Shankar Bajpai. Soldiers were firing rifles, politicians were making speeches. It was a big show. Right next to the governor's body was the body of a washerman, burning quietly on its own pyre. I thought to myself, no matter what your position in life, everyone ends up here sooner or later. Another time I saw an old Jain sadhu on one pyre and a young child on another. Age makes no difference to Mahakala, I mused. When your time is up, you pass away. After so many experiences of death, you forget all about life. Your renunciation is complete. The Smashan is called Shar-e-Kamash, the city of silence. No one goes there to sing or dance or laugh or enjoy themselves. No one goes there without being forced to do so. And all those who do go there cry for their loved ones who have left their bodies. Everyone cries, except the corpses. They laugh, because at last they have been set free from their earthly shackles. Many people are terribly surprised to discover they have died. It's not unusual. Suppose you had been at work doing what you like best. You had a heart attack and died. Your mind would still be engaged in your work and would take some time to disentangle itself from its worldly attachments. When death comes very suddenly like this, from a sudden heart attack or an accident or whatever, the deceased becomes very confused after death and must hover about as a spirit until he or she can figure out where to go. This is why I always say that even though there may be great physical agony, it is better for the individual to be alert at the time of death, or even to be asleep and dreaming, to permit the personality to project inward and search out the desires which will determine the next rebirth. My mother was well aware of her impending death. My father had many weeks to prepare for his. But for most people, even the act of dying is full of terrifying uncertainty. You may do your best to communicate with dying people, but it will not help much. They have already entered a different world. You will notice that a stage comes when the eyes begin to move rapidly, and the lips form unintelligible words. If you know about death, you will know that the individual is seeing Chitragupta's account book. What a beautiful word. Chitra, which means picture, plus Gupta, which means secret. Secret pictures, images no one else can see. And what is it? Only the subconscious memory, the causal body, the record of all the life's karmas. When you are in there in the subconscious, seeing all the activities of your life flash before your eyes like a movie, as you review all your past mistakes, can you be at all conscious with the outside world? No. Your ego, which up until then has projected outward through your sense organs into the external world, self-identifying with the body, now projects inward into the subconscious, trying to find something to self-identify with, selecting the karmas for the next birth. So, the son or daughter may be wailing, oh mother, mother, please forgive me, I never knew. But it is too late, because the mother is entirely unaware of what is being said. She has had to leave all connections with her physical body. There is a way to force a person to be alert at the moment of death. You can actually force the ego back into the conscious mind and then communicate with the dying person for a few minutes, but it is very difficult to do. It is always best to have gone through the process of dying while you are still alive. This happens, for example, when someone dies on the operating table and is then brought back to life. The scientists who are studying death nowadays have interviewed a bunch of these people. They have identified some of the sensations which one experiences at death. The movement of consciousness through a dark tunnel, the roaring noise and what have you. My foster daughter, Roshni, once experienced this. She used to drink bang, a preparation of milk and cannabis, every day. One day, I was in a queer mood, and I gave her I gave her the bang personally. She drank it, sat down in the armchair, and closed her eyes. Within a few minutes, her pulse and her breathing had both stopped. She came out of it after a bit, and I asked her what had happened. I was sitting in the armchair, flying through a long tunnel. It took a long time to get to the other end, and when I got there I started to go higher and higher. I was so scared I held onto the armchair very tightly. It was a very big space, an immense space, that we, the chair and I, were flying through, and I could see so many stars and other things that I can't express the words. I felt myself being attracted to a source of divinity, of love, and just then someone made me come back to my body. And ever since that day, she has been different. In fact, she complains to me, "Why did you have to bring me back? It was just like death, and now she knows what it will be like to die, just as those other people who have already experienced death know. And all of them will be much better prepared for death than the ordinary person, and their deaths will be much easier and better, because they know there is nothing to fear. Death is not to be feared. Birth is to be feared." Anti mati sa gati. Whatever you are thinking about at the moment of death determines your next rebirth. If you are aware at the moment you die and you remember God, you will definitely go to Him. There is no doubt about it. It is much more likely that you will remember God at the moment of your death if you have been remembering Him regularly all during your life. This is why you must lose yourself in love for your deity, so that you'll die with his or her name on your lips. So many of our holy books advise that in today's world, the greatest worship is the simple remembering of God's name. The Sufis do it this way also. But do you think it is easy to remember God at the moment of death? Oh no! Once there was a guru sitting under a tree with his pet disciple. As he was relaxing, the guru saw a mango growing on the tree, very near the ground, and thought to himself, "How much would I like that mango?" And just in the act of asking his disciple to pluck the mango for him, he died. The disciple didn't know what to do. He was distraught. "Guruji is gone. Now who will look after me and teach me?" Suddenly he had a thought. If it is true that you go to whatever you were thinking of at the moment of death, and since his Guruji had asked him for a mango just as he died, then he must still be somewhere around the area, trying to get at the mango to fulfill that last desire. So the boy plucked the mango, and, not knowing precisely what he was looking for, inspected it carefully. He found an ant crawling on it, and from nowhere, seemingly, another thought came to him. Why shouldn't Guruji be in this insect? He took the ant between his thumb and forefinger and crushed it. Immediately, his mentor was standing in front of him. "Thank you, my beloved boy, for what you have done for me. I was indeed trapped in that ant, desirous of tasting a mango. You have saved me from many lives of groping about in Maya." And he blessed the boy and disappeared. This does not mean that you should go around squashing ants. You had better know what you are doing before you play around like this. The boy in the story was just lucky, or perhaps you might say, destined for it. How did he know that the ant was his teacher? In fact, how did he even get the idea to investigate where his mentor might have gone? It was all the play of his guru. His guru inserted these two thoughts into the boy's mind. This is the beautiful play of guru and disciple. The guru always knows what is going on, but pretends to be ignorant. The disciple is expected only to be sincere. But if you are not in a position to know about these things, then don't fool about with them. In this case, the guru himself was lucky. Suppose the boy had been a dullard, or ignored his intuition. The guru might easily have become entangled in Maya again, through even such a small desire. Here's another story. There was an old woman who was truly pious. She worshipped God regularly, daily for several hours, and in fact didn't do much else. Toward the end of her life, she became blind and had to grope from place to place. But this made her worship all the more perfectly, since she lost most of the distractions of the outside world along with her sight. She was purely a vegetarian and ate very little. One day, as she was preparing her food, she accidentally stepped on a baby mouse, which she was unable to see, of course. The mouse died with a squeal. She was soft-hearted and thought immediately, "What has happened? I have killed something." And with this in her mind, she suddenly died. Well, anti mati sa gati. That last thought at the time of death was for the mouse, so she had to be reborn as a mouse. Then, because of the eternal fight for food, greed, and anger returned to her, and she was back on the downward spiral through the samsara. So, even the slightest attachment can do you in. On the other hand, even the slightest attachment to God can save you. There was a man named Anjaneya who had performed plenty of bad karmas in his life. As he lay dying, he could remember nothing but the name of his son, Narayana. Now, Yaranana, oh my god, I can't say it, but I'm going to. Narayana is the name of Vishnu, the preserver of the cosmos. And at the moment of death, the name of Narayana was on Anjaneya's lips. 2 demons came to drag his soul down into hell so that he could atone for some of his karmas. But an angel stopped them and said, "How dare you try to carry this man away? Don't you know he died with the name of Narayana on his lips?" The demons laughed and said, "Oh sure, he was calling his son. Is that devotion?" The fact is, he remembered Narayana, who exists in every human anyway. "He is coming with me," said the angel, and Anjaneya did get into heaven. Of course, he must have done plenty of penance in earlier births to get an opportunity like that, but that shows the power of God's name. Almost no one knows the time of their death, but thanks to Mahakala, I can know everything about how many friends will die, when they are due to die, how death will occur, how many people will be present to witness it, under what conditions the death will occur. Since now I have a special relationship with Mahakala, sometimes he can be induced to show me his magnanimity to them. Suppose someone's destiny mentions a lingering death after an accident. Mahakala can arrange to finish that person off immediately at the time of the accident. No suffering. You cannot outwit Mahakala, but you may be able to prolong life. Mahakala always needs an excuse to take you. A concomitant cause. If you avoid the specific situation which is fated to cause your death, you can go on and on. But very few can avoid it. Mahakala's effect on the mind is just too intense. Just recently, one of my friends decided to go to Telegaon. I can't say these words, man. I'm trying. Telegaon, a town near Pune, on a holiday. I told him, "The next fortnight is extremely crucial for you. Don't leave Bombay if you value your life." But he insisted upon going. When he got to the railway station, the lines were blocked and no trains were moving. Instead of interpreting it as a bad omen and going home, he and his wife sat on the platform and waited several hours until they could get a train. They went to Telegaon, and a few days later he died. No matter how long you were able to evade it, death becomes inevitable eventually. You can't cheat death. Only one person is accepted, the yogi. If he knows enough, he will know about his own death 6 months before it occurs, because then the prana will start to leave his body. Then, if he likes, he can decide the best day and time to leave his body, and when he is ready, he will call all his children together to receive his last blessings. After he says goodbye to each one, and the auspicious moment he has waited for has arrived, he sits in the lotus posture and goes into trance. Suddenly, there is a loud pop, "Fat!" and a jet of blood spurts up from his Shiva Rantra, posterior fontanelle of the skull. That is it. He is gone, free. Remember what Kabir said. When you come into this world you are crying, and the world is laughing. You must live your life in such a way that when you go, the whole world will cry, and you will laugh. And he did it too. But it is very uncommon to die aware like a yogi does. If people could only know what happens at death and after death, they would not make so many mistakes. My Ravi and I burned my father at Banganja, in the same place where I burned my mother and my son Ranu, and where I will be burned one day. When my father's body was in flames, don't you think his spirit must have been hovering about it somewhere? Of course it would have. Suppose you came home from work one day to find that your landlord had thrown you out of your flat, and the building had been condemned by the city and demolished. Wouldn't you hang around the area for a few hours or a few days to reorient yourself? Every dead person hovers about the body, wondering what to do next. Why do you think the Hindus cremate the dead only a few hours after death? Because the spirit may have some hope of returning to the body as long as the body exists. When that body has been reduced to ashes, though, the spirit has to find its own path. Burial encourages the spirit to hover about for quite a long time, especially if the body is well preserved. Muslims hold a 40-day reading of the Quran, to which the spirit is specifically invited, but this is not good because it makes the spirit linger. The sooner the spirit leaves and begins to find its own way, the better. The poor dead person wants to let everyone know he is still alive, and may become quite perturbed when no one around his body is listening to him, which is only reasonable, of course. You too would feel offended if all your relatives suddenly started to act as if you weren't there, when it is obvious that you are quite present. You can't blame the friends and relatives for failing to respond to the deceased calls. Humans, except those few who possess very subtle perception, cannot see or hear the dead. This is why I say that very few death rituals in any religion have any significance at all for the dead person. The priests invented most of the ceremonies as a means of making money from people's gullibility, which is bad enough, except that almost none of the priests know anything at all about spirits, nor can they see and converse with them. The Vedic religion is not composed of useless rituals. Those which are meaningless were added later by greedy priests. After death, the corpse is to be bathed, according to tradition. This is a good example of a meaningless ritual. Is there any use in bathing a corpse? Have you ever heard of anything more ridiculous? What is the use in cleaning it when in a few hours it will become ash, or worm, or vulture food? Is the deceased worried about feeling clean when he no longer has a body? You know, one day I had an interesting thought. We Indians are mostly vegetarian, and when we die we are eaten by vegetables. That is, we are consumed by wood, which is a plant material. We eat plants all during our lives, and when we die, the plants eat us in return. This is the law of karma. Muslims and Christians are predominantly meat eaters, and when they die, they are buried and become meat for worms to eat. Parsis are also meat eaters, and when they die, they are exposed in the towers of silence, and the vultures come and feast on them. I tell you, there is no escaping karma at all, except by grace. What is even more amazing to me than the way that people hold tightly to tradition is the changes which come over the deceased loved ones. I will never cease to be in awe of nature, of the power she has over the human mind. 5 minutes before he dies, a man's wife hugs him, kisses him, and cries over him. 5 minutes after he dies, she is afraid to touch the dead body. That peculiar feeling is there. Of course she feels peculiar. Even when they used to enjoy sex and thought they were getting enjoyment from the body, they were really enjoying something else, each other. You never feel like cuddling or fondling a dead person, because there is nothing within to cuddle or fondle. Only the outer shell remains. Shall I go further? After the husband dies, his corpse is removed from the house, and even after his cremation, the ashes are never brought home. Why? Because his spirit might come and trouble his wife. How absurd! Don't people have any common sense? They've been married for years, and they must have made love hundreds of times. If the spirit does come, he will love her. He will try to help her. Isn't it logical? But when it comes to death, very few do what is logical. When Roshni's father died, I warned all his relatives not to waste money on any rituals. I told them frankly that there was no use, and whatever could be done for him was up to me to do. His sister said to me, "You are a Hindu. What do you know about our Parsi religion? All the rituals will be performed and the family will pay for it. That is our way." I told her, "This has nothing to do with religion. This is a case of looting my poor children of part of the money their father left, and that too for something which is useless. If it could do some good, I would never object. But she wouldn't listen to me. Eventually I lost my temper and said, "Go ahead and do it, and face the consequences." They did, and within a few months this lady and all her relatives who had abetted her injured their left legs. She broke hers so badly it had to be put back together with screws and a metal plate. Only my foster daughter, Roshni, was spared. I've always been fond of her. When one of my Guru Maharaj's disciples died, I was told that he was going to be burned on a sandalwood funeral pyre, which would cost about $3,000. Isn't it the stupidest thing? When the spirit has left the body, is burning it on sandalwood going to make any difference? When you finally leave your body, you see so many new things, you experience so many unique things, that you have no time to bother about how your old body is being destroyed. At the time of cremation, a pinda, ball of rice flour, is put out for the crows to eat. The crow is a very smart bird. If a good observer is nearby, he will notice that sometimes no crow will take the pinda. Now, crows are always hungry, and they would like to take it. But that spirit is hovering around the pinda and is refusing to allow any crow to eat it. The spirit is very frustrated. He has been calling and calling, but no one can hear him. This is the only way in which he can draw attention to himself. When you notice that the crows are not eating the pinda, you must understand that the spirit has some vasana remaining, some earnest desire that was left unfulfilled during his lifetime. Then, if you care for the peace of the spirit, you must go to the pinda and say, "If you have some unfulfilled desire, come to me in a dream, or tell me in some other way," and the spirit will try to contact you. This very thing happened to one of my children not too long ago. He did not talk to the pinda, but one of his recently deceased friends came to him in a peculiar sort of dream and asked him to help provide a better home for his now fatherless children. And he is going to do that now to satisfy the spirit. Both the Hindus and the Parsis offer food to their departed loved ones, who consume it ethereally by smelling rather than tasting. The external form of the food doesn't change. I caution everyone I know never to eat food offered to a dead person. Such food has been polluted by the spirit's intense desire to return to physical life, which has a ruinous effect on the mind. You can even make a practical demonstration of this. Find a saint in samadhi and put some of this food into his mouth. He will directly come down from his samadhi. The pull of the physical is so strong. Priests are well known for eating such food, and this explains why their intellects are so materialistic even though they worship continuously. The rituals of death in their simplest forms have been propounded because there is some value in doing them. But you need to know what you are doing. Do you have any idea why we Hindus always lay the corpse out on the ground with the head to the north? You know that the magnetic lines of force on the earth run north and south. There are three important benefits of this practice. First, rigor mortis sets in quickly, and decomposition is hastened. Second, the magnetic field reacts with the body in such a way that the spirit cannot re-enter the body even if it tries. Third, in this position, it is easier to perform kilana on the spirit and to do Petri tarpana immediately, which will help the spirit find its way to a new womb much faster and easier. After death, the spirit is confused, uncertain of what to do. It is up to you as a loved one to do your utmost to give some direction to the after-death experiences to minimize the feelings of loneliness and terror of the unknown. Petri tarpana is one of the after-death rituals, which is really useful if you perform it correctly. It is a process by which you invite your dead ancestors and attempt to satisfy their lingering desires which prevent them from making their way higher in the hierarchy of existence. Did you know that this can actually alter your genes and chromosomes for the better? Suppose one of your ancestors was a debauchee, very fond of sex. When he dies, his lust will not disappear. He will carry it along with him. He will long for sex. But since his body no longer exists, he will have no way in which to satisfy his desire. However, his genes and chromosomes still exist. They have been passed down to his children and grandchildren and so on. There is no real difference between seed and tree, is there? One is the unmanifested form, and one is fully manifested. So this old geezer's lust will be felt by his descendants. So long as they have some of his genetic material in them, they will vibrate at his wavelength, at least to some extent. You have millions of genes. Not all of them work at once. How does the body decide which ones work? This is one way. Now, if Petri tarpana is performed, and this ancestor is made to take birth in a new womb, probably an animal womb, since he is so overcome with the animalistic desire to copulate, he will have a nice new body with which to enjoy sex. He will self-identify with his new genes and chromosomes, and will forget his old ones. Then you will be free of his influence on your own genes and chromosomes, because he won't be there broadcasting lust for you to resonate with. This will make your mind firmer, less sexy. Your ancestor will bless you for giving him a means through which to fulfill his desires. Besides, you owe a debt to all your ancestors for having provided your physical body to you, and this is one way to pay off that debt and eliminate the karmic bond. Isn't it wonderful? Everyone is happy. This is one of the many reasons I hate communism. Communists are taught to forget their parents and denounce them if they work against the state. If you destroy your parents, who are your roots, how do you ever expect to prosper? On the contrary, you'll degenerate, become more primitive and barbaric. I hate communism. Your ancestors are one of the reasons it is troublesome to be reborn. Every time you are reborn, you have to cope with the idiosyncrasies and whims of all your dead forebears, and by the time you are finished overcoming all those limitations, your life is over. That is why once you reach a certain stage in your sadhana, you begin to crave for freedom from the obligation of being reborn. And let me tell you, salvation, moksha, freedom from rebirth, or whatever you want to call it, it is Shiva's grace, nothing else. Lord Shiva tells his Shakti, all these fools you have created to play with should be put to sleep. Make them unaware of the truth and let them grope about. Only a few will I allow to reach for me and come to me, and then merge into me when they are perfectly aware. This is why everyone who goes to the cemetery cries. In fact, the Smashan is also known as Rudra Bhumi, the place where tears flow. Ordinary people cry because they are deluded by Maya and are self-identifying with a relative or friend who has just died. Saints and immortal beings cry tears of joy because it is in the Smashan that they see their true personalities, their true selves. Because what is Lord Shiva but pure consciousness? What state is Shiva in? Samadhi Nishto, permanent samadhi, eternal oneness with the universe. Shiva's samadhi is different from the ordinary states of samadhi because Shiva is aware of everything at all times. In ordinary samadhi, you may lose your awareness of external reality. Shiva, though, is perfect awareness. Shiva is almost never touched by Maya. He is the creator of Maya and allows her to play about as she wishes. He can never die, because all other gods and celestial beings in the universe are subject to his jurisdiction. If he were to die, how could he take them when their time came to cease to exist? The god of death is the only being in the universe with the authority to take life. Without that authority, even he could not do it. An ordinary policeman can arrest a governor or prime minister on the strength of his badge. Without his badge, he is powerless. Shiva has the right to kill. Since Shiva cannot die, he was never born, because everything which was born must die. Death treats all beings alike. This is why Shiva is called Swayambhu, or self-existent, not subject to birth and death. You may have seen the icon of Shiva as Nataraja, Lord of Dance, where he is surrounded by the flames of dissolution as his dance creates, preserves, and destroys innumerable universes simultaneously according to the rhythm of his two-headed drum. Shiva is the source of that sound. He is pure rhythm. You see, Shiva is absolute. Any form you worship is only a form, and your worship is worship of the absoluteness behind it. For example, take the Shiva Linga, the most commonly worshipped image in India for thousands of years. What is it really? It is absolute firmness, stability. What is firmer than a rock? You may beat on it, shake it, or do whatever you please to it, but it will never budge. The Shiva Linga is Shiva's penis, and the base in which it is mounted is his wife Parvati's vagina. There is a saying in Sanskrit, Bhaga Mukhe Linga, Agni Mukhe Parada, which means no matter how well you discipline the penis or solidify mercury alchemically, the penis will always ejaculate when placed into the vagina, and mercury will always melt when put into fire. But this is not true of Shiva. He has completely burned lust from his consciousness. His penis forever resides in Parvati's vagina, and yet he never loses control. This is why the tantric alchemists worship Shiva, because Mercury is Shiva's semen, and only through his grace can they achieve the ability to solidify it so that it will not melt even when cast into fire. Mount Kailasa in the Himalayas is said to be Shiva's abode. Why? Because it is intensely cold. Where there is no heat, there is no mental turmoil. Heat is turmoil, which arises from desire. Lord Shiva has gone beyond all desire. But that is not so easy. Life is only a memory. It may be a sweet memory or a bitter memory, but it is only a memory. As long as you remember that you are a such and such person with such and such an address, and you have relatives and friends and whatnot, you can stay alive. When you forget, when your karmic debts have been paid and your warehouse of karmas is empty, you can no longer self-identify with anything. Without memory, there is no life. In Sanskrit, the word for memory and the word for god of lust is the same. Smara. Desire is the cause of karma, and when desire is destroyed, memory too will go, and you will be free. This is why Lord Shiva is called Smarahara, meaning destroyer of lust as well as destroyer of memory. Sma in grammar means past. Memory is only of the past. Smarahara is he who transforms you from present tense to past tense, he who kills you. Smashan is the place where you go from present to past, where you are transformed from existence into memory. What happens at death? During life, the body is sustained by the ego, which self-identifies with the body, the relatives, the personality, and so on. Your ego is nothing but your Kundalini Shakti, your own personal fragment of Adya. All during life, your ego tries to find her mate, her controller, Lord Shiva. And because we have forgotten the truth, we find evidence of Shiva in other people and convince ourselves that we have located what we have been searching for. When Mahakala comes to a person, he calls to the Shakti to come and unite with him. This is why Mahakala has no form. He has every form. Every created being is only half and spends its entire life trying to reunite with its missing half, to return to the state of unity. Mahakala is like a master key, which temporarily provides the perfect missing half, long enough for the individual to forget his or her previous existence and start on the road to a new existence. When Mahakala comes to a person and the ego Shakti sees him face to face, she suddenly realizes, oh no, I am not the body, I am not this limited personality, I am the grand consort of my Lord, the unlimited, eternal personality. Because of overwhelming love, the Shakti leaves the body to unite with her Lord and forgets who she had been self-identifying with. As soon as the ego forgets to self-identify with the body, the individual dies. Some yogis and some other higher beings exist in the Sada Shiva form. Their individual ego Shaktis are merged together with Shiva at all times, but they are not fully united, since if they were, individual existence would have to be terminated. This is very rare, no doubt, but when it happens, you can go beyond death. Mahakala is a Rudra. He makes everyone cry. Do you know that he also cries out of joy whenever he takes anyone? He thinks, by my magnanimity, I have removed this individual from all the pains and miseries of existence. And the fellow was not even aware of my presence. Now he is truly at peace. People are fools to cry for their dead. They should cry for themselves. Lord Shiva is Bolanath, the Lord of Compassion. He has not one atom of cruelty in his person. He is the kindest being there is because he relieves you of all your earthly agonies. Can anyone ever think of asking for more than that? Everyone is afraid of dying, which explains why no one is willing to love Mahakala. Only 2 persons in all our scriptures have loved Mahakala, and both of them became immortal. Markandeya and Nakiketas. Destruction is necessary, but unfortunately, no one is willing to face death. Even for Rama and Krishna, who were real incarnations of God, there was one moment of shock, one tremor, when Mahakala appeared before them. Some slight maya was there, a momentary remembrance of their children or whoever. So, you see, the sight of Mahakala is so terrible that even God incarnate quails before him. Even Jesus had a moment on the cross when his faith almost failed him. Of course, the sight of Mahakala is not terrible. It is wonderful, but the ego sees him as terrible because he has come to rip her away from all of her attachments, and some attachments go very deep. When she is free, she realizes who she is and who Mahakala is. To remain alert at the moment of death is the achievement of a lifetime. People think death is to be feared. It just isn't so. Birth is to be feared, because when you are born you forget all about what you did in your past lives and you go out and ruin yourself. But death is release from your physical shackles. When Shiva comes to take someone, he is very gentle, especially to innocent and harmless people. And children, how he hates to take children. He'll do almost anything for a child just so it won't feel any fear, just so he can release it from its suffering. Why does he love children so much? Because of their innocence. They remind him of Gopala, Vishnu in the form of a baby. Shiva cannot do without Vishnu, nor Vishnu without Shiva. Preservation and destruction go hand in hand. Anjaneya. Once upon a time, Shiva and Parvati were on Mount Kailasa, in the high Himalayas, enjoying the night air, the stars, and the intense cold. Parvati decided it was a propitious time to ask a question. Lord, she whispered, on whom do you meditate? Lord Shiva smiled and said, O goddess, my mind is always turned to Vishnu, and even now I am thinking that he is going to be born into the world as Rama. I have decided to be born along with him to help him out. And that is why Anjaneya was born, and why he was the servant of Rama. Anjaneya is called Hanuman. Some say this because Indra, the king of the gods, once broke Anjaneya's jaw, Hanu, with a thunderbolt. But there is a hidden meaning here. Hanuman should be read as Anuman, because he is the atomic force. Anu means atom, the force which moves all matter in the universe. That is why he is called Pavanaputra, or Vayusutta, son of wind, wind being personified as the motile force. And we all know the power of nuclear energy. That is the power of Anjaneya. You can also read his name as Hanuman. Hana means to kill, and as Maharudra, the manifestation of the god of death, Anjaneya is a killer. He is called the Ekadasha Rudra, the 11th Rudra, because he has the perfect knowledge of both the dual and non-dual aspects of reality. 11 is 1-1, 1 plus 1 equals 2, duality. Once Anjaneya said to Rama, if I look at you from the point of view of Jnana, absolute knowledge, there is absolutely no difference between me and you. But when I see you through the dual viewpoint, from the standpoint of a devotee, then I am your servant. Anjaneya is extremely clever. On one occasion, he was throwing stones into the water, and they would float. But when Rama tried to do it, the stones would sink. When Rama asked why that was, Anjaneya replied, Master, I throw stones in your name and they float. But you are God incarnate. If you throw something down, how can that thing ever stop until it reaches the bottom? And Rama was amazed at his answer. No one can match Anjaneya in the Vira Bhava or the Dasya Bhava. He is the perfect hero and the perfect servant. That is why his devotees call him Mahavir, the great hero. He could easily have taken Sita himself and returned her to Rama without any war after all. He burned down the entire city of Lanka. But no, the play had to go on. It is always better for you to worship Anjaneya in his aspect as the perfect servant, because your qualities of service will develop and automatically your ego will be kept under control. If you try to worship him in his heroic aspect, you will have to endure great difficulties. It is worth it though. I can't describe to you the feeling I experienced when I first saw Anjaneya. I was in a Smashan late at night, and as my ritual reached its climax, a tremendous electrical storm began. The lightning came closer and closer, striking the ground near me, and it seemed as if the thunderbolts were going to fall right on top of my head. The noise of the thunderclaps, Meghananda, was almost unbearable. Even the best of ascetics would run away. Who would not try to avoid being struck by lightning? But no, you have to sit. Thanks to his grace, I was able to endure it, and I was able to see him face to face. In fact, as the thunder worsened, my mood became more exalted. Ah, now he is finally going to come to me. Anjaneya is high, no doubt, but there is no manifestation of Shiva higher than Mahakala. He is the Adi Rudra, the first of all the Rudras, the ultimate. Sehgal Shah. When someone in India feels some overpowering emotion or has a fright, he will touch his chest and say Rama, Rama, Rama. He will never say Hara, 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 because Rama is part of Vishnu and so preserves life, and Hara, being Shiva, takes it away. Only a very few ever say Hara under such circumstances. Whenever I think of this, I think of my own mother. As she lay dying, she was repeating the name of her guru, Haranath Thakur. Hara, 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 come to me. How many people have ever died with the name of the god of death on their lips, even inadvertently, as in my mother's case? That is why I always say I am most fortunate to have had her for my mother. The word Hara comes from the root her, which means to snatch. Mahakala is he who snatches your life away. He has also been described as the Lord of Thieves because he robs you of your most precious possession, your life. What is life anyway? The worlds, the gods, the demons, everything has been created by the Rishis. It is all their play. New creation can only appear when the old disappears, which is why the Rishis never allow death to cease to exist. Otherwise their play would suffer. Death is essential for life. The Rishis don't like to interfere directly. Even if your child is a criminal, do you destroy it? Never. So Mahakala is there to do the dirty work of disposing of all the old forms. The Rishis are actually in charge though. They pull the strings, and the universe dances. For example, they give Lord Shiva the badge which allows him to kill. Even Mahakala, who comes as close to any being can to existence without manifestation, exists at the whim of the Rishis, and the Rishis are beyond human comprehension totally. I have always advocated worship of God with form, but you should realize that when I say this, I mean that you should worship the one who manifests through the deity. All deities, all forms of God are mere aspects of the one. So instead of saying, for example, Wah, Lord Shiva, how compassionate you are, wouldn't it be subtler to say, Wah, Lord, your creation, Lord Shiva is the epitome of compassion? All deities are merely playing their assigned roles in the great cosmic drama. You should respect them for how well they play their roles, and love the one who manifests through them. It is so much easier to get to the one by worshipping gods with form. Mahakala is the absolute manifestation of Shiva, but there are others who are almost as terrifying as Mahakala. I had to perform Shiva Sadhana twice more before I was able to complete the sadhanas for all of Shiva's manifestations. The last time I did Shiva Sadhana was in the Sundarbans, the jungle islands which form the delta of the Ganges. I went there not out of curiosity, but in response to a telepathic request. I ignored it for a few days until it proved too strong for me, and I had to make my way to the jungles. The Sundarbans jungles are impenetrably thick. They are the home of the Royal Bengal tiger, Mr. Stripe, who can grow to a length of 12 feet. Tigers make a jungle exciting. While I was there, I was well looked after by the Santhal tribe. They would bring me fruits to eat occasionally. I would even get a hunk of raw meat. I learned some useful things from them also. Primitive people are really wonderful in some ways. These Santhals act together as Bhairava and Bhairavi. Can you believe it? And they have the utmost respect for their guru. They treat him as God himself. Although I was enjoying myself, I began to become restless after 2 or 3 days, and one night I decided to return to Bombay the next day. Whoever had called me probably would not show up. That night, while I was sitting in my dhuni, he came. It was Purnananda, the same Purnananda who was the disciple of Sarvananda and later initiated Justice Woodruff. It was at the insistence of Purnananda that I did Shiva Sadhana again. By this time, I had done it a 4th time after the 3 I had done for Shakti, and I was an old hand at it. It was just a formality to me. But it was essential for Batuka Bhairava. Batuka is a little boy only about 8 years old in appearance, although he can be terrifying when he wants to be. The corpse was that of a handsome young man, and I succeeded without any ado. I am still thankful to Purnananda for enabling me to complete my sadhanas of all the manifestations of Mahakala. Perhaps I was meant to do sadhana of Mahakala. I have always felt very lucky that I am a descendant of Sehgal Shah, who was a merchant and devotee of Lord Shiva. He had a little son who, you may believe it or not as you wish, was actually Mahakala in disguise. Sehgal Shah had taken a vow that he would not eat each day until he had fed a sadhu. One day, during the rainy season, he had not eaten for 3 days because he lived on an island and no sadhu would venture out there during a heavy rainstorm. On the 4th day, he learned that an Aghori, who was really Lord Shiva in disguise, had come to visit the island. Sehgal Shah accompanied the sadhu to his home. The Aghori declared that he had not had food for 3 days and demanded something to eat. "Of course, Maharaj," said Sehgal Shah. "Will you have some sweetened milk or yogurt or—" "You fool of a merchant, I am an Aghori. Am I meant for sweets? I eat meat. Bring me meat." Aghoris are always wild and uncontrollable. Sehgal Shah, remembering the old proverb, Atithi Devo Bhava, treat your guest as God, said to himself, "Lord, who have you brought to my house this day?" Because he had never even brought meat into his house before, much less cooked it there. But the guest must be satisfied. That was part of his vow. The Aghori continued, "And I don't want mutton or chicken. I want human flesh." Sehgal Shah, resigned to his fate, said, "All right, Maharaj. I will have myself killed and cooked and served to you." This only made the Aghori wilder. "Dunce, you are an old man. Think how stringy and tough your meat will be. I want a young child. Take his brains and fry them for me." Sehgal Shah said, "I have a young son who is in school right now. I will go and bring him and have his brains cooked for you." His wife, who was pregnant, also realized that it had to be done to fulfill the vow. Sehgal Shah went and found Chalaya, his son, and asked him to come home with him. Before he could explain why, Chalaya told him, so that old fellow wants to fry my brains and eat them. All right, let us go there, and I'll see how he does. The father should have suspected something when Chalaya knew all about the Aghori before being told, but Sehgal Shah was too distraught over his son's impending death to notice. How could Chalaya know about it? He was something different. His own father had not realized who he was. They went to Sehgal Shah's house, and Chalaya told the Aghori, "So you're trying to be funny, hey? All right, do it. Go ahead." And he was slaughtered and his brains pulverized, and the dish was prepared. The mortar and pestle in which his brains were mashed can still be seen on that island. When the meat was set before the Aghori, he became wilder still and refused to eat it, saying, "How can you expect me to eat food prepared by a barren woman, shameless wretch?" This was too much for Sehgal Shah's wife, who said to him, "You damn Aghori, who do you think you are? I am pregnant, so you dare not call me barren. Now I am going to make you eat, and I am going to watch and see how you do it." Ma in her kinetic Shakti form. Suddenly, the Aghori said to the corpse of the boy, "Get up!" And immediately the boy was standing there alive, saying, "So?" The Aghori instantly bowed to Chalaya, and the Aghori bowed to Chalaya, mind you, and said to Sehgal Shah, "Request a boon." Sehgal Shah replied, "Lord, what can I ask for? In Kali Yuga, no one is tested like this, and you have graced me by being born into my family. Now all that I can ask is that all in my family and all of my descendants should have pure minds. Anyone who develops durbudi, perverted intellect, should be destroyed." And so it has been until today. For 15 generations in my family, no one did any work, but the family was fabulously wealthy. And anyone, like my father's own brother, who tried to act funny and become a criminal, died. Our family was the agent for the East India Company, and we used to own all of Bombay. Because we would not cheat at business, we have lost much of what we once had. But that doesn't matter one bit, because we still have the real treasure, the blessing of God. Take the example of my father. Just before he died, no one could tell the difference between him and his guru. He had concentrated on the form of his guru for so long that his own form had changed. He must have done billions of japas in his lifetime. So did my mother. And that is just one effect of japa and meditation. With such a background, is it so amazing I turned out like this? And we have reached the end of chapter 3. The next chapter is chapter 4, entitled Renanu Bandhana. Went better than expected. I feel like crap. A couple stumbles along the way, but I appreciate anyone for hanging out with me. Yeah, please like and sub and all that nonsense. There's more to come. Much, much more. God bless.